the unsold ones. The artificial lighting on station Helios 9 never changed. It hummed at the same intensity through every shift cycle, creating an endless afternoon that made Marcus Webb forget what real sunlight felt like. He walked through the commercial district with his hands buried in his jacket pockets, shoulders slightly hunched against the recycled air that always felt too cold or too warm, never quite right. Marcus was 34 years old, though the lines around his eyes suggested someone older. His brown hair was cut short in the military style he'd never quite abandoned, even 3 years after leaving the service. His build was solid, the kind that came from years of lifting cargo containers and maintaining physical readiness rather than vanity workouts. His eyes were gray, the color of station hull plating, and they moved constantly, assessing, cataloging, looking for problems before they developed. Today those eyes were searching for something specific. A birthday gift. Emma would be 7 years old in 2 days, and he had promised her something special this year. Last year had been practical. New shoes and an educational tablet. The year before that, he'd barely remembered until the morning of her birthday, still deep in the fog of grief that followed Rebecca's death. The market district stretched along the outer ring of the station, where centrifugal force created enough artificial gravity to keep products on shelves and people on floors. Shops lined both sides of the wide corridor, their signs competing for attention with flashing colors and animated displays. The air carried a mixture of smells: synthetic coffee, grilled protein from the food vendors, the sharp scent of new plastics from the toy stores, and underneath it all, the ever-present metallic tang of processed atmosphere. Marcus passed a toy shop with a window full of interactive dolls. They blinked and waved, their programmed cheerfulness grating against his nerves. Emma had outgrown that kind of thing anyway. She was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of child who asked questions adults struggled to answer. Why do the stars look different through the observation deck? Where does Mom's voice go when we stop talking about her? Why is our home so quiet, Dad? That last question had hit him 3 weeks ago during breakfast. Emma had been stirring her nutrient paste without eating, her dark hair falling across her face. She looked so much like Rebecca it sometimes hurt to meet her eyes. What do you mean quiet? He'd asked, though he knew exactly what she meant. It's just us, Emma had said simply. And when you're working it's just me. The sounds in our home are only machine sounds. No people sounds. Marcus had not known how to respond. He'd changed the subject, promised they'd do something special for her birthday, and left for his shift feeling like he'd failed some crucial parenting test. Now, walking through the market, that conversation replayed in his mind. Emma didn't want a toy. She wanted something alive, something that filled space with presence rather than noise. But pets were prohibited in the residential sectors, and he worked 12-hour shifts supervising cargo operations. He couldn't be home more than he already was. He turned down a side corridor, following a half-remembered path toward the electronics district. Maybe a companion robot, something with better programming than those disturbing dolls. The corridor here was quieter, less foot traffic, more specialized shops. He passed a medical supply store, a shop selling station repair components, and then something that made him slow his pace. The sign read, Registered Companion Services Family Support Specialists, Station Authority Approved. Marcus had seen these sections before on other stations, though he'd never paid them much attention. The concept made him uncomfortable in ways he'd never fully examined. Hiring people for companionship felt transactional, hollow. But his feet slowed anyway, drawn by curiosity or perhaps desperation. The shop front was different from the others. No flashing lights, no aggressive advertising. Just clean white panels and soft illumination. Through the transparent wall, he could see several platforms arranged in rows, each with a small group of people standing behind waist-high barriers. Like displays, he thought, and his discomfort deepened. He should keep walking. This wasn't what Emma needed. This wasn't what he needed. But his feet had stopped moving. Marcus found himself studying the nearest platform. 3 women stood behind the barrier, and they were clearly not human. Their skin was a pale silver that seemed to catch and reflect the station lighting, giving them an almost luminous quality. They were tall, each of them at least 6 feet, with builds that suggested both strength and grace. Their hair was long, falling past their shoulders in shades that shifted between white and the palest blue depending on the angle of light. Their eyes were the most striking feature, large and violet, with an intensity that suggested deep intelligence. They wore matching outfits that looked like a blend of formal wear and practical clothing. Long sleeveless tunics in deep blue, belted at the waist, over fitted pants that ended at mid-calf. The fabric was clean but showed signs of wear at the seams and hems. Over their shoulders, each wore a translucent shawl that seemed to shimmer when they moved. The woman in the center stood with her arms crossed, chin raised, meeting the gaze of anyone who looked at her. She was perhaps 30 in human years, though Marcus knew that meant nothing with alien species. Her expression was challenging, almost defiant. This was someone who had stopped hoping for approval and settled into something harder. The woman to her left was slightly younger, with softer features and worried eyes. She kept her hands folded in front of her, fingers twisting the fabric of her shawl in a nervous gesture she seemed unaware of. Her gaze darted to passers-by, then away as if eye contact required courage she was running low on. The third woman on the right was the tallest. She stood with the posture of someone trained in combat or security, weight balanced, shoulders back, ready to move. Her violet eyes tracked every person who entered the corridor with the focused attention of a guard assessing threats. Yet there was something tired in her expression, a weariness that went deeper than physical exhaustion. A small digital display stood at the corner of their platform. Marcus stepped closer to read it. Valorian Family Support Trio Kira, Sarah, Naya registered. 11 months placements. 0 skills. Childcare, medical support, household management, emotional counseling status. Available special note. Family unit, non-separable contract only. 11 months. Nearly a full standard year standing behind that barrier, waiting for someone to choose them. Marcus felt something twist in his chest, an old military instinct that recognized soldiers left behind after evacuation. Non-separable contract only. That explained the 0 placements. People wanted 1 companion, not 3. The math was simple and cruel. They're beautiful, aren't they? Marcus turned. A man in station administrative uniform stood beside him, holding a data tablet. He was middle-aged with the soft build of someone who spent their life behind desks. His smile was professional, practiced, the expression of someone who made commission on successful placements. I'm Administrator Chin, the man continued. I manage the companion registry for this sector. First time considering a contract. Just looking, Marcus said, his tone flat. Of course, of course. Chin glanced at the 3 Valorian women, and his smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Those 3 are a special case. Valorians are excellent family support specialists. Very skilled, very dedicated. The problem is their cultural requirement to remain in trios. Most clients find that complicated. Why? Marcus asked before he could stop himself. Chin seemed pleased by the question. Well, housing 3 adults is expensive. The legal paperwork for a triple contract is extensive. And frankly, most people find the dynamic confusing. 3 companions creates an unusual household structure. People talk. Marcus looked back at the 3 women. The one in the center, Kira, according to the display, was watching him now. Her violet eyes were sharp, assessing him the same way he was assessing her. There was no hope in that gaze, just calculation. She'd learned to spot the difference between genuine interest and casual curiosity. What happens if they don't get placed? Marcus asked. Chen's professional smile faltered. After 12 months, they're typically reassigned to another station. Or return to their homeworld if no placement is found within 18 months. Return to what? I'm not privy to the details of Valorian social structures, Chen said carefully. But I understand that returning without completing a contract term is considered unfortunate. Marcus felt anger kindle in his gut, slow and hot. You mean shameful? Chen's silence was answer enough. Marcus stepped closer to the platform. The barrier came up to his chest, a symbolic division between the chosen and the unchosen. All 3 women's attention focused on him now. He could feel their scrutiny, their wariness. They'd been approached before. They'd watched people walk away before. Can they hear me? Marcus asked Chen without looking away from the women. Yes. The barriers are only physical, not auditory. Marcus addressed the woman in the center directly. My name is Marcus Webb. I work cargo logistics in the loading sector. I live in a 2-room residential unit with my daughter Emma. She's about to turn 7 years old. Kira's eyes narrowed slightly. We are not birthday presents, she said. Her voice was clear and strong, with an accent that added a musical quality to human standard language. No, Marcus agreed. You're not. Then why are you telling us about your daughter? This came from the younger woman, Sarah. Her voice was quieter, more cautious. Marcus considered the question honestly. Because I came here looking for something to fill the quiet in our home. And I'm starting to think I was looking for the wrong thing. The third woman, Naya, spoke for the first time. Her voice was deeper, with an edge that suggested someone who'd learned not to trust easy words. People always say interesting things when they're looking. Then they walk away and we're still here. That's fair, Marcus said. Kira uncrossed her arms. It was a small shift but significant. What do you actually want? She asked. Be specific. We've heard enough vague promises. Marcus appreciated the directness. It reminded him of military briefings where bullshit got people killed. Honestly? I don't know yet. I came here looking for a toy or a robot. Something to keep my daughter company when I'm working long shifts. But standing here looking at that display showing 11 months with 0 placements, I'm thinking about a different question. Which is? Sarah asked. Why does everyone walk away? The 3 women exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them, the kind that came from years of close proximity. Kira spoke first. Because humans don't like complications, she said. They want simple solutions. One person to cook or one person to clean or one person to watch children. They don't want a package deal. We explain that we work as a unit, Sarah added. That our training emphasizes complementary skills. Kira handles leadership and organization, I provide medical and emotional support, Naya manages security and physical needs. Together, we create a stable household structure. And they nod and smile and say it sounds wonderful. Naya finished. Then they choose someone else. Someone singular. Someone simpler. Marcus processed this. How long were you trained as a unit? 12 years, Kira said. From childhood. On Valoria, family support specialists are raised in trios. We learn to anticipate each other's movements, to cover each other's weaknesses, to function as 3 parts of one system. And when you're separated? Marcus asked. The 3 women's expressions shifted, becoming carefully neutral. Sarah looked down at her hands. Naya's jaw tightened. Kira held Marcus's gaze but he saw something vulnerable flicker across her face. We don't separate, Kira said quietly. That's the point. We're stronger together. But that strength makes us unwanted here. Administrator Chen cleared his throat. If I might interject, the Valorian trio model is excellent in theory. In practice, station housing regulations make accommodating 3 additional adults challenging. Most family units simply don't have the space. Marcus ignored him. What happens when you're returned to Valoria? We're reassigned, Sarah said softly. To another trio or to individual service if no trio has space. We'd lose each other. After 12 years together, Marcus said. Yes. Marcus felt the weight of that single word. 12 years of training, of building trust, of becoming something more than 3 individuals. And human convenience was going to tear it apart because the paperwork was complicated. He thought of Emma, eating breakfast in their quiet apartment, stirring her food without appetite. He thought of Rebecca, gone 3 years now, and how the silence in their home had never been filled, just gotten louder. He thought of his own isolation, working among people but returning each night to an emptiness that no toy or robot could address. How much? Marcus asked. Chen blinked, surprised. I'm sorry? How much for a contract with all 3? Chen recovered quickly, pulling up information on his tablet. The standard placement fee for a Valorian trio is significant. 12,000 credits as a station registration fee, plus monthly support costs, housing expansion requirements, legal documentation processing. He rattled off numbers that made Marcus's chest tighten. 12,000 credits. That was 8 months of his salary after living expenses. He had perhaps 3,000 in savings, scraped together over the last year. There are financing options, Chen continued, sensing hesitation. Payment plans that spread the cost over 2 years. However, they require employment verification and credit history review. Marcus did the math in his head. Even with financing, the monthly cost would gut his budget. No more savings. No emergency funds. One equipment failure or medical emergency and they'd be in station debt, which was nearly impossible to escape. But he looked at the 3 women watching him with carefully controlled expressions, and he thought about Emma's question. Why is our home so quiet, Dad? I need to think, Marcus said. Disappointment flickered across Sarah's face before she controlled it. Naya's expression hardened back to neutral. Kira just nodded once, unsurprised. Of course, Chen said smoothly. Take all the time you need. Though I should mention we have several other interested parties scheduled for viewing this week. It was a sales tactic, creating artificial urgency. Marcus recognized it and felt a flash of irritation. But he also knew that Chen was probably lying. 11 months with 0 placements suggested a distinct lack of interested parties. I'll be back, Marcus said, addressing the women rather than Chen. I need to figure out the logistics. We've heard that before, Naya said quietly. Marcus met her eyes. I spent 12 years in military logistics. When I say I need to figure something out, I mean I will figure it out. Not that I'm looking for an excuse to walk away. Something in Naya's expression shifted, a slight softening. Military experience meant something to her, he realized. She recognized the language. We're here until shift cycle ends, Kira said. Her tone was neutral, but Marcus caught the underlying message. We're always here because we have nowhere else to be. Marcus nodded and stepped back from the platform. He could feel Chen starting to launch into another sales pitch, so he turned and walked away before the man could start. His mind was already working through the problem, breaking it down into manageable components the way he'd been trained. Problem: insufficient funds for placement fee. Solution options: request advance on salary, take additional shifts, sell personal items, apply for station loan. Problem: insufficient space in current residential unit. Solution options: request unit expansion, apply for larger unit transfer, reconfigure existing space. Problem: no experience managing a household with 3 additional adults. Solution: stop overthinking and trust that people who'd trained for 12 years knew more about household management than he did. Problem: Emma's reaction to 3 strangers suddenly living with them. Solution: no solution existed except honesty and giving her a choice. That last problem was the real one, Marcus realized as he rode the transit lift back toward the residential sector. He could solve money and space. But he couldn't force Emma to accept 3 Valorian women into her life. This decision couldn't be his alone. The lift doors opened onto the residential corridor. Marcus walked the familiar path to their unit, his mind still churning through possibilities. The door slid open as he approached, responding to his biosignature. Dad. Emma appeared from her small room, her face bright. You're home early. Marcus crouched down as she ran to him, catching her in a hug. She smelled like the synthetic soap from the station dispensers and the fruity snack bars she loved. Her dark hair was tangled again. He really needed to learn how to braid it properly. I need to talk to you about something important, Marcus said, pulling back to look at her face. Something about your birthday. Emma's expression became cautious. You said you'd get me something special this year. I know, and I'm trying. But I need your help deciding what that something should be. They sat together on the small couch that dominated their living space. Through the narrow window, Marcus could see the curve of the station's interior, the opposite side visible as a ceiling kilometers above. Lights from other residential sectors created a scattered constellation. You know how you said our home feels quiet? Marcus began. Emma nodded, suddenly serious. I found something today that might change that. But it's not a toy or a robot. It's people. Emma's eyes widened. Like, people? 3 women from a planet called Valoria. They're trained to help families, to live with them and take care of things. They know about cooking and medical stuff and keeping people safe. They work together as a team. 3 of them? Emma asked. That's a lot of people. It is, Marcus agreed. It would change everything about how we live. Our space would be more crowded. We'd have to share the bathroom and the food storage. There would be different voices and different routines. Emma was quiet for a moment, processing. When she spoke, her voice was small. Would they replace Mom? Marcus felt his throat tighten. No, Emma. Nothing replaces Mom. These women wouldn't be here to pretend they're your mother. They'd be here because they need a home and we need not to be so quiet anymore. Does that make sense? Emma twisted her hands together, a nervous gesture she'd inherited from Rebecca. Can I meet them first? Before deciding. Marcus felt relief flood through him. She wasn't saying no. She was being cautious, which was smart. Yes, he said. That's exactly what should happen. If I can arrange it, would you be willing to talk to them? Ask them questions? What kind of questions? Any questions you want. This is your home too, Emma. You get a vote in who comes into it. Emma thought about this seriously, her 7-year-old face grave with concentration. Finally she nodded. Okay, I'll meet them. But Dad. Yeah. What if I like them and they don't like me? Marcus pulled her close again. Emma, anyone who meets you and doesn't like you is making a mistake. And if they make that mistake, then they're not the right people for our family anyway. Promise you won't be mad if I say no? Emma asked, her voice muffled against his shoulder. I promise. This is too important for anyone to be forced into. They sat together in their quiet apartment, the ambient hum of station life support the only sound. Marcus realized that whatever happened next, this moment mattered. Emma had understood the weight of the decision without him having to explain it. She was braver than he'd given her credit for. I need to go back tomorrow, Marcus said. To arrange a meeting. Can you be ready to talk to them tomorrow evening? Emma pulled back and nodded, her expression determined. I can be ready. Marcus smiled, feeling something like hope kindle in his chest for the first time in months. Then let's see what happens. The next morning, Marcus was back in the commercial district before his cargo shift began. The companion services section was quieter at this hour, fewer browsers, more serious clients meeting with administrators. He found Chin at a small desk near the entrance, reviewing his tablet. Mr. Webb, Chin said, looking up with calculated surprise. I didn't expect to see you back so soon. I need to arrange something, Marcus said without preamble. A meeting. Tonight after my shift. The 3 Valorian women and my daughter. Somewhere neutral where they can talk. Chen's eyebrows rose. That's highly unusual. Standard procedure is to finalize contracts before introducing companions to household members. Nothing about this situation is standard, Marcus said. They've been standing behind that barrier for 11 months because everyone treats them like a package deal that's too complicated to bother with. I'm not signing anything until my daughter meets them and decides if she wants them in our home. If that's a problem, tell me now so I can stop wasting both our time. Chin studied him for a long moment. Marcus kept his expression neutral, the same face he'd used in military negotiations when showing weakness would cost him leverage. It can be arranged, Chin finally said. There's a family consultation room in the administrative section. I can reserve it for this evening. 1800 hours? I'll be there, Marcus said. And Chin? Tell them the truth about why they're meeting us. No surprises, no sales tactics. Just 3 women and a 7-year-old girl deciding if they can build something together. Chin nodded slowly. I'll inform them. Though I should warn you, Mr. Webb, this approach is likely to create expectations. If your daughter says no after they've met her, the disappointment will be significant. Then I'll deal with that disappointment honestly, Marcus said. Same way I'll deal with everything else. He left before Chin could offer more warnings or advice. His shift was starting in 20 minutes and he had cargo manifests to review. But as he walked toward the loading docks, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Not certainty. Not confidence. Just the recognition that he was moving toward something instead of away from it. Whether it worked or collapsed didn't matter yet. What mattered was that he was trying, and that Emma was brave enough to try with him. Tonight, they'd find out if 3 women who'd been waiting for 11 months and 1 7-year-old girl who'd been living in quiet grief could somehow become the beginning of something none of them expected. The quiet in their home might not last much longer. And for the first time, Marcus thought that might be exactly what they needed. The family nobody expected. The family consultation room was smaller than Marcus had expected. It occupied a corner of the station's administrative section, with walls painted in a soft neutral gray that was probably meant to be calming but felt more clinical than comforting. A rectangular table dominated the center of the space, surrounded by 8 chairs with thin cushions. One wall held a large display screen currently showing the station logo, rotating slowly. The lighting was adjustable, currently set to a warm tone that approximated late afternoon on Earth, though Marcus suspected neither he nor Emma remembered what that actually looked like. Marcus arrived 10 minutes early with Emma. She wore her best clothes, a simple blue tunic over leggings that were already getting too short for her growing legs. She'd insisted on brushing her own hair this time, and while it wasn't perfect, Marcus hadn't corrected her. This was her meeting as much as his. Emma's hand gripped his tightly as they entered. Her palm was slightly sweaty, a sign of nerve she was trying hard to hide. Marcus gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Remember, he said quietly, you can ask them anything. And if at any point you want to leave, we leave. No questions asked. Emma nodded but didn't speak. Her eyes were fixed on the empty chairs across the table. Administrator Chin appeared in the doorway, his professional smile in place. Mr. Webb, Emma. Thank you for being punctual. The Valorian trio will arrive momentarily. I'll make introductions and then leave you to your conversation unless you need me to stay. We'll be fine alone, Marcus said firmly. Chen's smile tightened fractionally but he nodded. Very well. I'll be in my office if needed. The room is reserved for 2 hours. Footsteps sounded in the corridor outside, and Marcus felt Emma's grip on his hand tighten. Then they appeared in the doorway. Kira entered first, her bearing confident but her violet eyes cautious. She changed clothes since yesterday. Instead of the worn tunic and pants, she wore a simple dress in deep green that fell to mid-calf. It was still clearly used clothing, but someone had taken care to keep it clean and pressed. Her white-blue hair was pulled back in a complex braid. Sarah followed, wearing a similar dress in soft gray. Her nervous energy from yesterday was still present but more controlled. She carried a small bag made of woven fabric, its strap across her shoulder. Naya came last, and Marcus noticed she positioned herself to see both the door and the room's interior simultaneously. Old security training still active. Her dress was darker, nearly black, and she moved with the controlled precision of someone always aware of their physical space. All three women stopped just inside the doorway, taking in the room and its occupants. Their eyes lingered on Emma, and Marcus saw their expressions shift subtly. Something in their postures softened. "Kira, Sarah, and Naya," Shin said, gesturing toward Marcus and Emma. "This is Marcus Webb and his daughter Emma. As I explained, they've requested this meeting before any contract discussions. I'll leave you to talk." He backed toward the door, then paused. "The room is private. Take whatever time you need." The door slid shut behind him with a soft hiss. For a moment no one moved. Marcus felt the weight of the silence, different from the quiet of his apartment. This silence held possibility and risk in equal measure. Kira was the first to move. She approached the table slowly, her movements deliberate and non-threatening. She pulled out a chair across from where Marcus and Emma stood but didn't sit immediately. "May we sit?" she asked, directing the question to Emma rather than Marcus. Emma glanced up at Marcus. He nodded slightly, releasing her hand. Emma took a breath and spoke for the first time since entering the room. "Yes. Please sit." The three Valorian women took seats across from them, leaving an empty chair between Sarah and Naya. Marcus guided Emma to a chair and sat beside her. The table between them suddenly felt both too wide and not wide enough. Sarah reached into her bag and withdrew something wrapped in soft cloth. She placed it on the table and carefully unwrapped it, revealing a small carved figure. It was clearly handmade, depicting what looked like a bird with elaborate wings spread in flight. The wood was smooth, polished by handling. "I made this during our waiting time," Sarah said softly, sliding it across the table toward Emma. "I carve when I'm nervous. It helps my hands stay steady for medical work." She paused, then added, "You can keep it whether we meet again or not. It's a gift, not a trade." Emma reached out tentatively and picked up the carving. Her fingers traced the detailed feathers. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "Thank you," Sarah said, and something in her shoulders relaxed slightly. Marcus watched the exchange and felt a tightness in his chest ease. This was the right decision, bringing Emma here. Whatever happened next, this moment was already worth it. Naya leaned forward slightly, her elbows on the table. "I'm going to say something direct," she announced. "Because children deserve directness more than adults do, and because I'm bad at pretending." Emma looked up from the carving, meeting Naya's intense violet gaze without flinching. Marcus felt a flash of pride at his daughter's courage. "We need a placement," Naya said bluntly. "We've been waiting 11 months, and if we don't find a home soon, we'll be separated and sent different directions. So we're here because we're desperate, not because we're perfect. We'll make mistakes. We'll have bad days. We might cook food you hate or organize things in ways that annoy you. But we'll show up every day and try our best because that's what we're trained to do and because we don't want to lose each other." Kira shot Naya a look that suggested this level of honesty hadn't been discussed beforehand. But Sarah nodded slightly, supporting the words. Emma set the carving down carefully. "My mom died," she said simply. 3 years ago. Dad tries really hard, but he's sad a lot and he doesn't think I notice. Our home is quiet because we're both sad and we don't know how to fix it." The three Valorian women went very still. Marcus felt his throat constrict. He'd known Emma was aware of his grief, but hearing her articulate it so clearly hit him harder than he'd expected. "We lost people too," Kira said quietly. "Not to death but to separation. On Valoria, trios are trained together from childhood, but we're rotated between families every few years. We had mentors who taught us, other trios we bonded with, children we helped raise. Then contracts ended and we moved on and those connections broke. Over and over." She paused, her hands flat on the table. "So we understand quiet. And we understand trying to fix something that feels permanently broken." Emma looked at each of them in turn, her expression serious beyond her 7 years. Then she asked the question Marcus had been dreading. "If you come live with us, will you leave later like everyone else does?" Sarah's hand moved to her chest, pressing against her heart. "We can't promise forever," she said softly. "No one can. But we can promise that if we come intending to stay. And if something changes, we'll tell you honestly before it happens. No surprises, no disappearing." "How do I know you mean that?" Emma asked. It was Naya who answered. You You have to decide if you trust us enough to find out. That's what trust is. A risk you take on purpose. Emma absorbed this, nodding slowly. Then she turned to Marcus. Can I ask them questions alone? Without you here? Marcus felt surprise and something that might have been hurt. But he pushed both aside and kept his voice steady. Yes, if they're comfortable with that. We're comfortable, Kira said immediately. Marcus stood, his chair scraping softly against the floor. I'll be right outside. Knock if you need me. Emma nodded, already turning back to the three women. Marcus walked to the door, feeling like he was leaving his daughter in a room with strangers, which was exactly what he was doing. But Emma had asked for this and he promised her agency in this decision. The door closed behind him and he stood in the empty corridor, his heart beating harder than it should. Through the door's soundproofing he could hear nothing. He checked his watch. Gave them 10 minutes, he told himself. Then knock and check in. Inside the room, Emma studied the three women with an intensity that made Sarah shift uncomfortably in her chair. Why three of you? Emma asked. Why not just one? Kira fielded the question. On Valoria, family support specialists work in trios because families are complex. One person can't meet all needs all the time. I'm good at organizing and planning and managing resources. Sarah understands emotions and health and how to help people feel better. Naya protects and handles physical challenges and keeps everyone safe. Together, we cover more ground than any one of us could alone. Like a team, Emma said. Exactly like a team, Kira confirmed. Emma picked up the wooden bird again, turning it over in her small hands. Sarah, why did you learn to carve? Sarah seemed surprised by the question. I needed something to do with my hands when I couldn't help people. When we were waiting, I felt useless. Carving gave me something to create instead of just standing still. Do you like helping people? Emma asked. Yes, Sarah said without hesitation. It's the only thing I've ever been good at. Emma turned to Naya. You said you protect people. Have you ever hurt someone? Naya didn't flinch from the question. Yes. When I was younger, working in a household where the adults fought. One of them grabbed Sarah during an argument. I intervened. The person fell and broke their arm. We were removed from that placement. Was it your fault? Emma asked. The review said I used excessive force, Naya replied carefully. I disagreed. But that household was toxic anyway. We were better off gone. Emma seemed to accept this. She looked at Kira. What's the worst thing about being in a trio? Kira blinked, clearly not expecting that question. She took a moment before answering. Sometimes we disagree about important things. When that happens, there's no tiebreaker. We have to work through it until we all agree, which can take a long time. It would be easier sometimes to just make a decision alone. But you don't, Emma said. No. Because we're stronger together, even when it's harder. Emma set the carving down and folded her hands on the table, mimicking adult seriousness. Here's what I think, she said. I think you're scared like I'm scared. I think you've been standing behind that barrier for a long time hoping someone would choose you, the same way I've been hoping Dad would stop being sad. I think if you come live with us, it's going to be weird and crowded and probably awkward for a while. The three women waited, not interrupting. But I also think, Emma continued, that our home being quiet is worse than it being weird. And I think three people trying their best is better than one person trying their best alone. She paused, then added, plus I really like this bird carving. Sarah's breath caught, somewhere between a laugh and a sob. So here's my vote, Emma said firmly. Yes, you can come live with us. But there have to be rules. Kira leaned forward. What rules? Rule 1. Nobody lies about feelings. If you're sad or mad or scared, you say so. We've had too much quiet sadness already. Agreed, Kira said immediately. Rule 2. Dad is still Dad. You're not my new moms. You're something else. We'll figure out what later. Understood, Sarah said softly. Rule 3. If this doesn't work, if we all decide it was a mistake, we have to talk about it first. No one just leaves without saying goodbye. Naya's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Yes, that's fair. Emma stood up from her chair, still clutching the carved bird. Okay, I'm going to get my dad now. You can tell him you have my vote. She walked to the door with surprising confidence, knocked once and it slid open. Marcus was there immediately, his expression concerned. Everything okay? He asked. Everything's good, Emma said. We talked. I voted yes. Now you have to do the adult stuff. She walked past him into the corridor, leaving Marcus staring after her in surprise. He turned back to the three Valorian women, who were watching him with expressions that mixed hope and apprehension. She voted yes, Marcus repeated, still processing. She did, Kira confirmed. She also set rules. Very good rules. Marcus entered the room again, closing the door behind him. He remained standing, hands in his pockets. Then I suppose we need to discuss logistics. The money, Naya said bluntly. Chin told us the placement fee is 12,000 credits. That's substantial. It's 8 months of my salary, Marcus said honestly. I have 3,000 saved. The rest would require financing I'm not sure I qualify for. The three women exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them that Marcus couldn't read. There's another option, Kira said carefully. If we register as household partners rather than contracted companions, the station fee drops significantly. It's listed as cohabitation instead of service placement. What's the difference? Marcus asked. Legal status mainly, Sarah explained. As companions, we're registered as service providers. You're our employer, we're your employees. As household partners, we're registered as co-equal residents. We share financial responsibility for the household, we all have equal claim to the living space. Decisions are made collectively. It's what families do on Valoria, Naya added. But humans rarely choose that structure because it means giving up some control. Marcus considered this. What's the fee for that registration? 800 credits, Kira said. Plus the cost of expanding your residential unit or applying for a larger space. That's manageable, Marcus said slowly. But are you comfortable with that structure? You'd be tied to our household legally. If something goes wrong. If something goes wrong under a companion contract, we get reassigned, Kira interrupted. Under partner registration, we have the right to contest problems and demand mediation. It actually gives us more protection, not less. Marcus pulled out a chair and sat down, processing this new information. Why didn't Chin mention this option? Because administrators make commission on companion placements, Naya said flatly. Not on partner registrations. He'd rather we stayed on the market where he could eventually make money from us. Marcus felt anger stir again at Chen's manipulation. But he pushed it aside to focus on the present decision. If we register as household partners, what does that mean practically? Day to day. Sarah pulled a small tablet from her bag and navigated to a document. Standard Household Partnership Agreement for Multi-Species Units, she said, sliding it across to Marcus. Basically, it means we share resources and responsibilities. Your income provides financial base, our labor provides household function. Major decisions get discussed, no one person has veto power. Living space gets divided equitably. Privacy is respected. Conflicts get mediated by station family services if needed. Marcus scanned the document. It was surprisingly straightforward, written in clear language rather than the dense legal terminology he'd expected. This feels less like employment and more like actually building a family. That's because it is, Kira said quietly. Companion contracts are transactional. Partnership agreements are relational. The first is about what we do for you. The second is about what we build together. Marcus set the tablet down. Outside the window, he could see the curve of the station, the endless rotation that created false gravity and false day-night cycles. In 3 years of living here, he'd never felt like Helios 9 was home. It was just the place where he and Emma existed in their quiet grief. But looking at these 3 women who'd spent 11 months waiting for someone to see them as more than complicated inventory, he wondered if home was something you built rather than something you found. I need to understand something first, Marcus said. This isn't charity. I'm not rescuing you. If we do this, you're not here because I felt sorry for you standing behind a barrier. Then why are we here? Naya asked, her tone sharp with challenge. Marcus met her gaze steadily. Because Emma asked why our home was so quiet. Because you 3 understand what it means to lose people and keep functioning anyway. Because I spent 12 years in military logistics learning that the best teams are built from people who cover each other's weaknesses. And because standing outside that door just now, listening to my 7-year-old daughter interview you with more wisdom than most adults I've worked with, I realized she was right. 3 people trying their best is better than 1 person trying alone. The room went quiet again. But this silence felt different. Fuller. Sarah's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Kira's expression had softened into something that might have been relief. Naya's challenging posture eased, her shoulders dropping slightly. So that's a yes? Kira asked. That's a yes, Marcus confirmed. If you 3 are willing to take a chance on a cargo supervisor and his daughter who are both still figuring out how to function without someone they loved. We're willing, Sarah said immediately. But we have conditions too, Naya added. We won't be treated as servants. We contribute as equals. We get respect, not gratitude. And if you or Emma or anyone else starts treating us like we're lucky to be chosen, we walk. Fair? Marcus said. My condition is honesty. About everything. If something isn't working, we address it immediately. No letting problems fester because someone's afraid to speak up. Agreed, Kira said. Marcus stood and extended his hand across the table. Then let's make this official. Kira stood and gripped his hand firmly. Her palm was warm, her grip strong. They shook once, a human gesture that she'd clearly learned. Then Sarah stood and took his hand, her grip gentler but no less certain. Finally Naya, whose handshake was brief but solid. I need to talk to Administrator Chen, Marcus said. Get the actual paperwork started for household partnership registration. Warning, he's not going to be happy about losing the companion placement fee. We can handle Chen, Naya said with something that might have been a smile. We've been dealing with administrators for 11 months. We know how they work. When can we see where we'll be living? Sarah asked. Marcus checked his watch. Now if you want. It's not much. 2 rooms above the cargo docks. It'll be tight with 5 of us, but we can apply for unit expansion or transfer to a larger space. We'd like to see it, Kira said. Before anything is finalized. Make sure the space works. Honest question, Marcus said. What happens if you see it and decide it's not suitable? The 3 women looked at each other. Naya shrugged slightly. Sarah bit her lip. Kira's expression was thoughtful. Then we figure something else out, Kira said finally. But we don't walk away from this. Not after your daughter set rules and made us promise to talk before leaving. She gets honesty. That was her first rule. Marcus felt something in his chest loosen, a knot of tension he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. All right then. Let's go look at what might become our home. They found Emma in the corridor, sitting on a bench with her legs swinging, still holding the wooden bird. She looked up as they emerged. Did you do the adult stuff? She asked. We're working on it, Marcus said. They're coming to see our apartment. See if the space works. Emma hopped off the bench. It's small, she warned the 3 Valorian women. And sometimes it smells like cargo bay because we live right above it. And the water pressure is weird. But the window shows the whole station curve, which is pretty cool. It sounds perfect, Sarah said softly. They walked together through the administrative section toward the transit station. Chen appeared as they passed his office, his expression carefully controlled when he saw the group moving with purpose. Mr. Webb, he called. Have you made a decision? We have, Marcus said without stopping. We'll be filing household partnership registration tomorrow morning. Not a companion placement. Chen's professional mask slipped for just a moment, showing frustration underneath. Mr. Webb, I really must advise against that option. The legal complications are less complicated than the financing for your placement fee, Marcus interrupted. We're going with partnership registration. If you have forms I need to complete, send them to my residential unit code. He kept walking, the 3 Valorian women and Emma keeping pace. Behind them, Chen stood in his doorway, his commission disappearing down the corridor. The transit ride to the residential sector was crowded during shift change. Marcus, Emma, and the 3 Valorian women squeezed into a car already half full of workers heading home. People stared at the unusual group, their eyes lingering on the silver skin and violet eyes of the Valorian women. A few whispered to each other. Naya's jaw tightened at the attention. Sarah moved closer to Kira, making herself smaller. Kira kept her expression neutral, but Marcus saw her hands clench slightly. Emma noticed too. She stepped forward and raised her voice just enough to carry across the transit car. They're coming to live with us, she announced to no one in particular. So everyone can stop staring now. Several passengers looked away, embarrassed. One woman smiled slightly and nodded at Emma. The tension in the car eased fractionally. Naya looked down at Emma with something that might have been respect. You're direct, she said quietly. I learned from my dad, Emma replied. He says if something's true, say it clearly. Smart dad, Naya said. The transit car descended toward the lower residential levels. Through the windows, the interior of the station rotated slowly, showing the industrial sections below and the commercial sectors above. Somewhere in that vast structure, 3 women who'd been standing behind barriers for 11 months were about to see a 2-room apartment that might become home. Marcus felt the weight of that possibility. This wasn't like his military postings where everything was temporary and everyone knew it. This was choosing to build something permanent, or at least trying to. The risk of failure felt enormous. But he looked at Emma holding her carved bird, at Kira standing straight despite the stairs, at Sarah's nervous hope, at Naya's protective positioning near Emma. And he thought maybe the risk of not trying was worse. The transit car reached their level. The doors opened onto the familiar corridor with its scuffed floors and exposed pipes. Home such as it was. "This way," Marcus said, leading them down the corridor. Their unit door looked exactly as it always did. Unremarkable, slightly dented near the handle from when Marcus had dropped a cargo crate 3 months ago. He keyed in the access code and the door slid open. The 3 Valorian women stepped inside and stopped, taking in the space. Marcus tried to see it through their eyes. The small living area with its cramped couch and fold-down table, the narrow kitchenette along one wall, the 2 doors leading to Emma's room and his own. Through the window the station curve was visible, exactly as Emma had described. It was cramped. It was modest. It smelled faintly of recycled air and the metallic tang from the cargo bays below. Sarah walked to the window and pressed her hand against the transparent surface. "You can see the stars," she said quietly. "At the companion dormitory, we only had interior views." Kira moved through the space with an evaluator's eye, checking the kitchenette, the storage capacity, the door mechanisms. "The heating system is functional?" "Yes," Marcus said. "Temperature control is actually decent compared to some station units." Naya was examining the door locks and the window security. "Old habits from security training. These are standard issue. I can upgrade them easily. Station allows modifications to personal units as long as they don't affect structural integrity." Emma tugged on Sarah's sleeve. "Want to see my room? It's small but I have drawings on the walls." Sarah looked to Marcus, who nodded permission. Emma led her through one of the doors, their voices becoming muffled. Kira turned to face Marcus. "It's cramped," she said honestly. "For 5 people this will be very tight." "I know," Marcus said. "We can apply for unit expansion or transfer. But that takes time. Weeks, maybe months depending on availability. Can we make it work temporarily?" Naya asked Kira. Kira looked around again, her expression thoughtful. "Yes, if we're creative with space management. Sarah and I can share one room, Naya can take the fold-down space in the living area. It's not ideal but it's functional. And it's not a dormitory with strangers rotating every week," Naya added. "It's private space with a locked door. That alone makes it better than where we've been." Emma emerged from her room with Sarah following. "She said my drawings are good," Emma announced proudly. "And she knows a technique for making hair look more realistic. I used to sketch in my training days," Sarah explained. "Before they told me to focus only on medical studies." Marcus felt something click into place. These 3 women had skills and interests beyond what their training had focused on. They'd been reduced to functions for so long they'd probably forgotten parts of themselves. "Listen," Marcus said, gathering everyone's attention. "If we do this, if we register as household partners and you move in here, things are going to be chaotic at first. We're going to step on each other's toes, literally and figuratively. We're going to have conflicts about storage space and bathroom schedules and food preferences. It's going to be messy." "We know," Kira said. "But," Marcus continued, "it's also going to be an opportunity to figure out who we actually are together. Not as employer and employees. Not as human and aliens. Just as 5 people trying to build something that doesn't exist yet." Naya crossed her arms. "You're describing a family." "Maybe," Marcus said. "I don't know. Emma's rule number 2 was that you're not her new moms. You're something else. Maybe that something else is what family looks like when you build it on purpose instead of inheriting it." Sarah's eyes were bright again. "I'd like to try that." "Me too," Kira said quietly. Naya looked around the cramped apartment one more time, then nodded. "All right. Let's build something that doesn't exist yet." Emma pumped her fist in the air. "Yes. When do you move in?" "Tomorrow," Marcus said, making the decision in the moment. "I'll file the partnership registration in the morning. We can move your things from the dormitory in the afternoon." "We don't have many things," Sarah said. "Personal items fit in 3 bags. Everything else belonged to the dormitory." "Then we'll get more things," Emma said firmly. "You need stuff that's yours. Dad says everyone needs stuff that's only theirs." Marcus smiled at his daughter's conviction. "She's right. We'll figure out what you need and get it gradually. No rush." They stood together in the small apartment, 5 people who'd been strangers 2 days ago, now on the edge of becoming something more. Outside the window, the station rotated endlessly, its artificial day unchanging. But inside this small space, something was shifting. The quiet Marcus and Emma had lived with for 3 years was about to be replaced. With what, none of them knew for certain. But they were choosing to find out together, and that choice felt like its own kind of hope. "I should take you back to the dormitory," Marcus said. "You'll need to notify them about the move." "Actually," Kira said, "they'll already know. Chin will have reported our meeting. Dormitory administrators track placement potentials closely. They'll be glad to have the bunks free," Naya added with slight bitterness. "Space is always needed." "Then this is real," Emma said, looking at each of the 3 Valorian women in turn. "You're really coming to live with us." "We really are," Sarah confirmed, crouching down to Emma's level. "If that's still okay with you." Emma threw her arms around Sarah's neck in an impulsive hug. Sarah froze for just a moment, clearly not expecting the gesture, then carefully wrapped her arms around the small human child. Her eyes closed and Marcus saw her throat work with emotion. When Emma pulled back, she turned to Kira and Naya. "You can hug me too if you want. I'm a good hugger." Kira smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face from guarded to warm. She accepted Emma's hug with more grace than Sarah had, clearly more comfortable with physical affection. Naya hesitated, then knelt and let Emma hug her, her large hands patting Emma's back awkwardly but gently. Marcus watched this scene unfold in his cramped apartment and felt something break open in his chest. Not grief this time, but its opposite. Room for something new. Tomorrow they would file paperwork and move belongings and figure out sleeping arrangements. Tomorrow the real work would begin. But tonight, in this moment, 5 people who'd been separate were choosing connection. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't simple. But it was real and it was theirs, and that was enough to start. "Welcome home," Marcus said quietly. The 3 Valorian women looked at him, and in their violet eyes he saw hope mixed with determination. They'd waited 11 months for someone to choose them. But this wasn't about being chosen. This was about choosing each other. The quiet was ending. Something louder, messier, more complicated, and infinitely more alive was beginning. And for the first time in 3 years, Marcus thought maybe that was exactly what healing looked like.